You're watching 24-Hour News 8, the best news you'll get all day. Now, Mike Ahern, Debbie Knox, meteorologist Cliff Nicholson, and sports with Mark Patrick. This is 24-Hour News 8 at 6.
I couldn't go back and get the other one because I didn't know where he was because of the rocks and the branches.
This fisherman pulled one boy to safety but couldn't reach another who disappeared along a west side stretch of the White River. Good evening at 6 o'clock, and as we've seen so many times before, a hot day in the dangerous waters of the White River can be a deadly mixture.
Such was the case for one teenager today, but quick work saved the life of another young man. News 8's Anne-Marie TIERNON joins us now from along the White River with that story. Anne-Marie?
Good evening, Mike and Debbie. We're at the dam, which is just south of the 16th Street Bridge, and apparently 4 were playing together earlier today when 2 got into trouble.
Right there, right here where the bubbles are. Okay.
A fisherman called firefighters to White River after 2 boys who had been playing in the water suddenly started to struggle and then disappear.
While we were fishing, the kids were playing on sliding down the dam. And then the 2 boys went, started bobbing up and down, and then both of them went under and stayed under about maybe 40, 50 seconds. And then they both bobbed back up. And then he said, looks like they're in trouble.
The boys have been using the dam as a slide. There's a strong current here, and one fisherman dove in after the boys. He pulled a 13-year-old to the banks.
And by the time I got to him, I think maybe the top of his head was, I don't think he was going to come back up again. I snatched him up, and then we came on over. And once I got him over to the side, because I was worried about him trying to drown me helping him. So I wanted to hurry up and get him out of my hands because he was grabbing me around like a baby would grab his mother or something.
Minutes after an IFD diver arrived, he pulled the second to shore.
It was pretty bad. A lot of fish line, rocks, bottles, you name it, down I ran into it. It was, I would say, roughly about 6 to 8 feet, I would say. Just barely enough where I could stand up.
Do you think you got there in time?
I hope so.
Firefighters believe the older boy was submerged for 20 minutes. He was in full cardiac arrest at the scene. Now, we have received word from the hospital that the 17-year-old has died. A translator has been called in to speak with the family. They reportedly speak Cantonese and have had a difficult time talking about this incident and really what happened with authorities, Mike and Debbie.
All right. Thank you very much. Anne-Marie. Well, a DePauw University professor was injured today in a terrorist attack in Jerusalem.
Bernard Batto is in an Israeli hospital with a variety of injuries. Jim SHELLA has more from Greencastle, where Batto's wife has been following her husband's situation by telephone.
The militant Muslim group Hamas claimed responsibility for the explosion on an Israeli commuter bus this morning. 5 were killed, including 1 American. Among the 100 injured was DePauw University religion professor Bernard Batto. His wife TERESA, at home in Greencastle, received a phone call from her husband some 2.5 hours after the explosion. He called from the hospital.
He couldn't talk too well, but he said that he was in an accident, that he was on the bus, and that he had smoke in his lungs, and that's why he couldn't talk too well, and that he had cuts on him, especially he had a laceration on his head.
Batto has taught on the Greencastle campus for 8 years and left on a sabbatical just 2 weeks ago.
It's my understanding that he was there to undertake a couple of projects. One is to expand on his knowledge of modern Hebrew.
It's not yet clear if Batto was on the bus which exploded or a passing bus which also caught fire. He told his wife there was so much smoke that he couldn't tell exactly what happened. Batto has been to Israel twice before.
I really didn't worry very much, but he's only been gone 2 weeks, so it was quite a surprise that something like this would happen so soon after he left.
When Professor Batto left here, he was planning to stay in Jerusalem until November. Those who know him say today's bombing will likely do nothing to change that plan. In Greencastle, Jim SHELLA, WISH TV, News 8.
Professor Batto is expected to be released from the hospital no later than tomorrow. Now the latest from South Bend as week 2 of the Kofi Ajabu trial unfolds.
Prosecutors are calling witnesses who can tell how Nick Alaminos met Raymond Adams. Adams is one of the men accused with Ajabu in the killing of the Alaminoses and 2 other young people, and another young person in Hamilton County last year. News 8's Pam Kramer is live now in South Bend to explain why this testimony is important in Kofi Ajabu's trial. Pam?
Well, Debbie and Mike, so far in this trial, we're hearing the name of Raymond Adams much more than we're hearing the defendant's name, Kofi Ajabu. And the defense attorneys like that because as far as they're concerned, they want to keep attention on Raymond Adams and try to link him to the brutal murders in Hamilton County last year.
And we've said all along that we think the forensic and medical testimony is generally favorable to our client's position, at least as to whether he was involved in the actual murders of the people.
Defense attorney Kevin Shanti questioned during cross-examination the doctor who performed autopsies on Lisa and Nick Alaminos. Dr. Dean Hawley testified that the throats of the brother and sister were slashed in a similar fashion.
I've been instructed by the court not to discuss the case.
Our belief is that the same individual killed Nicholas Alaminos and Lisa Alaminos. Now that's our belief, that's not the evidence yet. We don't believe that Mr. Ajabu was that individual.
Photographs of the wounds on the bodies were shown to the jury. Some of the worst pictures were of Chris James, who was strangled to death. The judge did throw out several photos that, in his words, may inflame the jury.
He's concerned about inflaming the jury inappropriately, so he's being very conservative with his rulings on the pictures.
How does that affect your case?
It shouldn't really have that big of an impact. I think with the pictures that we've been able to get in, we should still do just fine as far as being able to illustrate to the jury what went on that night.
We're done for the day here now in South Bend. The last witness was 19-year-old Peterson Britt, who knew Nick Alaminos, and he also knew Raymond Adams. And according to his testimony, he called Raymond Adams for drugs, marijuana specifically, to give to Nick Alaminos. And that's how the 2 men met. The state will not tell us who their next witness is because they say for security reasons. They want to draw attention off of the witnesses in the order that they will be coming on to the stand. But we do know that Raymond Adams himself is expected to be here midweek to testify against Kofi Ajabu.
Yes,
reporting live via satellite. Yes, Mike, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, now I understand Adams is in town there, right? They're just waiting until Wednesday to get him on the stand.
That is right. They're trying to play that down, Mike. But yes, he was brought in this weekend. He is in the jail because, as you know, he has agreed to life without parole. So he's going to be serving a lot of time, but right now he's here ready to testify in this trial.
All right, Pam, thank you. Pam Kramer live by satellite in South Bend.
Well, authorities say a 3-year-old boy found in a barrel this weekend had been dead 3 or 4 days. Today's autopsy revealed Reuben Traylor died of suffocation. The child's body was found Saturday in a barrel in an enclosed dumpster site near 38th and Shadeland. Traylor was reported missing over 10 days ago. Police believe a teenage aunt and her friend took the child with them when they ran away from home. One of the 2 girls led police to that dumpster. There have been no arrests. Well, coming up in a few minutes on News 8 at 6 o'clock, meteorologist Cliff Nicholson tells us if we're in for a break from the heat.
Ottawa is back to class today for students in the state's largest school district.
That's right. I'm Rick Hightower live at Manual High School on the south side, where an extra 400+ students showed up for the first day of school. We'll tell you why in a live report on News 8.
What do you do with several hundred high school students when their schools have been closed?
You pack them into other schools, and that's what took place today for those IPS students who used to attend Washington and Howe. News 8's Rick Hightower joins us from Manual with a look at how the day went there today. Rick?
Good evening, Mike and Debbie. Much cooler than it was when students arrived here at Manual High School this morning. School only went till about 10:30 this morning, but some students felt that was long enough because of all the confusion and the stress that goes with that first day of school. Made it a little bit difficult for transferring students to gain school spirit for their new alma mater.
This place is a madhouse.
Like other IPS high schools, Manual is experiencing growing pains, increasing from around 1,500 students to some 2,000.
Have a seat, please.
The first day of school was a bit confusing for just about everyone, but especially for those transferring from Howe and Washington, 2 high schools that were closed this year.
I'm kind of nervous because, you know, I was so used to how I've been there for 3 years or whatever. So it's okay, I guess.
In the lunchroom, there was people standing up because there wasn't enough seats or anything. It's very crowded.
It's all right. I have to live with it. I mean, can't do nothing about it now. Make the best of it, I guess.
I'm upset that HOWE closed. That's what I wanted to graduate from, but, you know, it's the way it goes.
You're in algebra. No, wait a minute. No, you belong on the 3rd floor.
We will have quizzes periodically.
Sweltering classrooms didn't help the transition, which some teachers were making as well.
I think anytime you have major changes like that, then it makes it difficult. You know, I think they have a good attitude. They're wanting Manuel to succeed. They're wanting to do a good job here, but it's hard.
The principal gave the first day high marks.
Oh, I think I'd give it a B+ anyway. I wish we had everybody scheduled so that everybody could have gone directly to class, but that somehow never happens.
As students boarded one of 42 buses waiting to take them home, there was a positive note to the end of the first day. Only 179 days to go. And of course, the toughest day is over. Tech had the most new students today, about 1,500 students. That puts Tech up around 3,000, making it one of the top 3 or 4 high schools in the state of Indiana. Mike and Debbie.
Yeah, one of the things we had heard back here, Rick, that you may not have heard about was that if parents were trying to register their child today for class, it was a big project because kids were waiting in line and parents were waiting in line. It was pretty stressful event.
I know a lot of kids here thought they were registered, and when they showed up, they couldn't find their cards or their transfer records. So there were a lot of parents sitting that had to be at work watching their clocks, as you saw, trying to get all this ironed out. A stressful day for everyone.
Yeah, tough one. Rick, thanks. Rick HIGHTOWER reporting live from Manual High School.
Well, of course, this was the first day of class for all IPS students, and it was an especially proud day for Crispus Attucks Middle School. After being closed for 2 years during a multi-million-dollar renovation project, the carpeted, air-conditioned, beautifully restored historic school is back in the business of education. But Attucks has received an academic warning, and while many of the Indianapolis schools now have central office administrators assigned as academic monitors, Attucks may have the most intimidating one, Superintendent Esperanza Zendejas.
I hope to get involved with some of the activities at Crispus Attucks, especially with students. I like to do some academic coaching, and so as soon as school starts, I'll be working towards that.
To have her around, she'll be more aware of our needs and hopefully be able to help us fill those needs so that we can better help the students.
IPS has been troubled again this year with school assignment and transportation problems. The hours for the transportation hotline have been extended tonight until 10 o'clock. If you have a busing problem, you can call the number on your screen, 226-4500.
Well, the weather may have turned just a bit cooler today, but the heat wave has forced 2 more school districts to cut back on class time. For the rest of this week, Franklin-Lapel schools will dismiss elementary students at 12:40 p.m., high school dismissed at 12:50, and morning kindergarten will be closed out at 10:35 in the morning. There will be no afternoon kindergarten. Christ the King schools in Indianapolis will close at 1 o'clock tomorrow and Wednesday. Morning kindergarten will be from 8 to 10 o'clock. The afternoon session from 11 to 1 o'clock.
Well, if it would just cool off, all these kids could be in school for longer periods. Wouldn't that be great? But we're not going to get a break, it doesn't
getting
sound
a little better for a couple of days anyway, I think.
Yeah.
And tonight, for example, we're going to finally see the 60s, first time in a while.
You know, we'll see the low 60s the first time in over a month here in Indianapolis. So we've had a little faux pas action today. I'll explain that in just a minute.
Cliff Nicholson has been approved by the American Meteorological Society.
There's actually some good news tonight in the weather department.
Don't you think it's about time?
It is time.
Yeah,
we need this news.
This will be very good. In fact, the heat index is even down today.
Our regular temperature is 86, and the heat index right now in Indianapolis is 88. The first time in, seems like years.
Well,
I
it's
haven't
been well
had to say
above
it's
100 for several days.
Oh,
today.
yes, it has.
Good, great news.
So, good news. Faux pas, frontal passage, drier air from Canada coming down for a visit. It's going to feel super. Temperature high in the city, although today still hot, 91 degrees, and that after a low this morning of 71 degrees. The record high in the state 100, and the record low was 47 degrees. There has been no rainfall, although picked up a little bit over the weekend, so for the month we're holding at 3.59 inches, and we averaged 3.64. Sunny, blue sky. Now, with the lower relative humidities and drier air coming in, we don't have that white, hazy sky. Matter of fact, you could just see it being pushed to the south this afternoon as the drier air came in. Dew point temperatures out of the 70s for a change at 64 degrees. Relative humidity coming in at 48%. That drier air is coming down from Canada out of the north at 13, and the barometer is steady. As we take a look at one of our local weather stations up north where it's also drier as well, current temperature is 81 degrees at Taylor Elementary in Kokomo, and the heat index there only 82. Again, a sign of drier air moving in. Temperatures at the top of the hour are in the 80s and the 90s, although it still hasn't made it down to Evansville where the temperature is 90 degrees and the heat index is 101. But look at all the sunny skies here. Dew point tropical air in the 70s, still over southern Ohio, extreme southern Indiana, but 70s all the way down the south. But look at the dew points in the 50s and the 60s up to the north, and that will be our friend over the next few days. Over the nation, the one-time Hurricane Felix, we can say goodbye to that. It's currently up, heading toward the southern tip of Nova Scotia, and may kind of hit that area there, but beyond that, the continental United States is pretty well safe from that. It's now a tropical storm, incidentally, with winds of 65 miles per hour. Zooming in a little bit closer to our area, in the precip department, nothing. There was the front that came down, and it's right about in here. Back to the west, some scattered thunder showers over Nebraska, as well as down here around the Gulf Coast. Precipitation forecast for Tuesday has the front right about in here, dipping down into areas of, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, just north of that, with the rain to the south and back to the west. In the sunshine department, ultraviolet indexes will be quite high with all that sunshine over the Midwest as well as southern Texas and western California there. Temperature highs across the nation. Notice the 90s back here in the central and northern plains. Well, we have a brief break. We could see those 90s coming back into town later in the week. However, tomorrow, mostly 80s. Evansville could still see 90. Here's the forecast for Indianapolis tonight. Clear, starry, a seasonal night with a low temperature, the coolest temperature that we have had since July 19th, would you believe? 62 degrees, the low. Tomorrow now, sunny skies, a lot less humid. 86 degrees, the high temperature. That'll be the first time in 12 days that we've seen the temperature down to the 80s. And it looks like we'll stay within the 80s a couple of days, and then back up we go Friday and Saturday to the low 90s. But most enjoyable, at least until midweek.
All right, well, very good. Thank you. You're at the RCA Tennis Championships yesterday, weren't you?
It was hot, but it was very nice.
And Pete Sampras did not make it, so you were upset about that.
I did not get to see
Big
Pete.
Pete Sampras fan here.
But now I'm an Enqvist. Is that how you pronounce it?
Enqvist.
Thomas Enqvist.
Yes, I'm that kind of fan, right.
But they are done, and now our attention will turn to the other RCA Dome.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. Talk a little Colts and Bears. A few roster moves on the agenda for the horse. Coming up next in sports.
Sports, sponsored by OSCO. Count on people who care.
With the RCA Championships finished, the world's largest remote control switches channels to the RCA Dome, where the best program will be the Colts and the Bears on Thursday night. It's the preseason finale for both teams. Ron Sexton spent the afternoon on West 56th Street with the horse and joins us now from the Sports Temple with more. Ronnie?
Well, following the win at Lambeau Field, Ted Marchibroda admitted a couple of guys on the bubble secured jobs with solid play, but he wouldn't say who. By this time tomorrow, we'll know.
Get the inside arm up and down. Now get it up on top.
The preseason is winding down, more ways than one. Tomorrow morning, about a dozen players will exchange playbooks for bus tickets.
I'm not as nervous because, like I said, this year I put my work in. I knew what I had to do, and I did it in front of the coaches so that they could see and know that I would be ready.
You know, there's nothing a lot of them can do right now, and it's just a matter of we've got to make our decisions, what we think is going to be the best group that will make up the 95 Colts, and we've had an awful lot of hard work out of everybody that's been on our defensive football team, and this is certainly not a fun time of the year for the coaches.
The first major cut means his current 74-man roster drops to 60, and this year there's heavy traffic at a position often ignored by the Colts in season, tight end.
Come out and do what you can do and hope things fall in your favor, but, you know, I've been in a good and bad situation, so I'm just, you know, trying not to think about it too much and just take care of what I can do.
Thursday night's the final tune-up before the campaign that counts, and the Horseshoes will be without 2 starters, center Kirk Loudermilk and tackle Tony McCoy.
Loudermilk, number one, won't play in this ball game, but we assume that he's going to be ready for the Cincinnati game. Tony was operated, but I had a scope in his knee this afternoon, and they just found some loose bodies in there, and we hope that Tony makes a recovery like we did last time, but we won't know until until time passes.
Loudermilk has a slight knee sprain, nothing too serious, and the last time Tony McCoy had this very surgery, he was back in record time, exactly 1 week. So Mark, the Colts aren't overly concerned about this.
I mean, it took me a lot longer to come back from that brain ligament damage I had, Ronnie, so we'll hope for the best for Tony Mack.
Will do.
All right. Ron Sexton at the Sports Temple. Now, we're just a few weeks away from the Mature Tour's annual visit to the Circle City. The PGA Senior Circuit invades Brickyard Crossing to once again challenge another of Pete Dye's diabolical designs. Today, media day for the upcoming tournament. The man who rebuilt Brickyard Crossing from a 27-hole extravaganza to a championship 18 is more manicured than one of Madge's clients. He talked about how the senior pros will battle the Brickyard.
Everybody's talking about a few modest changes we've made, or that make a big difference in the golf course, but I think the weather conditions hopefully will be entirely different, and the wind comes out of the southwest instead of the northeast, and of course the golf course is kind of designed to play out of the southwest. That makes those last 4 holes a little more formidable, I'd say, but really I think we get some dry weather and it'll play entirely different, which will be fun to watch these fellows play because it'll be like a new golf course to them.
After losing last night to Louisville at Beautiful Bush, the first-place Tribe took their final day off of the regular season before heading to picturesque and peaceful Omaha tomorrow to start a 6-game road trip. Gotta love the Little League World Series. Hey, Toms River, New Jersey, and Spring, pronounced Sprang, Texas. Look at that, a grand salami from Chris Cirillo to give the East, that's New Jersey, a 10-9 lead. They think they've got it won, but the bottom of the 6th, tied at 10, a wild pitch, and the name of the tournament, Vardell Starling, scores the winning run for the South. They win at 11-10. It continues all week. Highlights here on Wish TV.
All right.
Okay, Mark, thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Tonight on your 24-hour news service, we'll have an update on the state's investigation into alleged problems at Bloomington Hospital. And mothers have been known to give birth in some rather unusual places, but on a shrimp boat, we'll have the outcome for you tonight on News 8 at 11 o'clock. And that's our news for now. I'm Debbie Knox.
I'm Mike Ahern. For Mark Patrick and Cliff Nicholson, thanks for being with us. The CBS Evening News next, and we'll see you again tonight at 11. Good night.